Alrighty, what's up, everybody? I got Clayton, I got JMart. We are on a mission here to figure out how to bet college football. Of course, Clayton's going to win his 2 games where, I'm like, hey, I need some prop bets. I'll spend 10 hours trying to figure out the Seahawks only to watch them get destroyed by the Niners. And Clayton's like, all right, I'll just go 2-0. But that's what happens. So let's just get right into it. I want to do the prop bets. I like that from last week. Let's keep that going. And then I want to figure out what the hell happened last week and then what's going to happen this week. So, Clayton, go for it. Floor is yours. No pressure, but you're undefeated.
Yeah, man. So starting, I've got Cedric Alexander. He's the Vanderbilt running back. I'm taking his over on rush yards. Line's at 41.5. It's definitely an average baseline, just looking at his previous stats, but he's had at least 42 yards in every game on at least 11 carries, averaging 4 yards per carry. So if he plays like he has been, should easily hit. He was much more involved against Bama compared to the other teams they faced. And I expect him to have a similar volume just because I think that kind of allowed them to slow things down, play a more patient game. So,
cool.
So yeah, I expect that to hit.
Yeah, I was going to say with these college prop bets, one of the things I at least notice is that they just do it based on the average. So that's why I think you guys can help some people out, because if you're watching the games, and apparently that's the kid you like. So good. That's one of them. JMart, why don't I go to you for your first one?
I'm going to do 2 at once because they're both Ryan Williams. I love his line of 73.5 receiving yards against South Carolina and 29.5 longest reception. We went longest reception last week. He crushed it again. He still doesn't have a game where I think he's under 43 for the longest one. And South Carolina just hasn't looked that good against the deep ball. They're really good up front. They're really good at stopping the run, but teams have been able to beat them over the top pretty consistently. And for Ryan Williams, that's his bread and butter. That's where he plays the best. That's where Milroe finds him the best. And I do think it's just a perfect matchup for him against South Carolina.
So he's a fascinating kid. He's 17 years old. How good is he, though, compared to, like, the rest of the nation? Is he, like, a top 10 receiver right now?
He feels like Marvin Harrison Jr. again. It just feels like there's nothing he can't really do. He just gets open. Teams know he's the guy, and he's just still finds a way every single game to have a massive play.
Yeah, Alabama seems to always have that guy, and that's definitely him this year.
Yeah, they produced all these receivers in the past. Is that game in South Carolina?
Not sure.
Alabama.
Oh, got it. I was gonna say you would know. That was my next question, is if you were going. So the Alabama at home at noon after getting their ass handed to them by Vanderbilt, giving up 40 points. What do we got? 21 points. Clayton, what's the score of this Alabama-South Carolina game going to look like?
Yeah, as a South Carolina fan, it's kind of upsetting because last week we had a team coming off an upset loss. Same thing's happening this week. Next week we play Oklahoma and they're playing Texas, so it's likely going to be the exact same situation. But I don't expect South Carolina to win. I think Alabama, especially being at home, if they can start out hot, I don't think they should have any problem, especially with how South Carolina looked against Ole Miss.
All right. Well, at least you'll get up early and drink and enjoy it, or at least enjoy the first 5 minutes of it. We'll see how long.
Yeah.
All right. What else? What's your second prop bet?
Yeah, I've got Jordan James, running back at Oregon, over 77.5 rush yards. He's easily cleared this line every game this year. The only reason it's this low is because they're playing Ohio State. But Ohio State, I'm not super convinced on yet. They haven't really played a true opponent. And one thing that really stuck out to me about James is he's only had, in one game, he's had a long run of 20-plus yards, which shows me that he's really consistent and not necessarily relying on these explosive plays to hit these lines.
What's their rushing attack look like? Do they have multiple running backs, or does he get the brunt of it?
He's been getting about 20 yards per carry. I'm not sure how their whole depth chart looks in terms of that.
You're saying roughly 20 carries per game?
I think so, yeah.
So, okay, Oregon running back and the Vandy running back. You got Ryan Williams up there, the receiver. JMart, you got anything else?
Yeah, this one's it's because I know Illinois football a little bit. It's Pat Bryant for Illinois, 54.5 receiving yards against Purdue. He is being priced at the same rate as Zachary Franklin, who are the two big receivers for Illinois. And Purdue is terrible. We made money off Purdue betting Nebraska spread. Wisconsin just beat them by nearly 50. Purdue has looked like a team with absolutely no plan. It's just been ugly to watch. I'm starting to feel bad. And he's priced the same as Zachary Franklin, but he's just been killing the line consistently with 1 week with 33, which was against Penn State. So you can't really hold that against him. Penn State's just a better team than Illinois. I do expect him to be able to see a massive percentage of the yards that Altmaier is going to have.
Was Purdue supposed to be this bad this year?
People, I mean, every year Purdue's supposed to be pretty bad. People, you can't. This is bad. Historic for Purdue. This is something else.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I would have told you Illinois is favored by 22.5 points against Purdue, that seems like a lot. But
it is a lot. Illinois doesn't really blow teams out. That's one place they do struggle. They'll win by like 2 to 3 possessions, but you don't see them win by 4 that often. So it is a game that I think Purdue could just cover by Illinois not being able to score enough to cover the line.
Copy. So Clayton, what's your last one?
Yeah, so this one's more of a question mark, more based on just who they're playing. But I'm taking Michael Van Buren, the Mississippi State quarterback, over 131.5 passing yards. He's young QB. Obviously, I think he's a true freshman. He may be redshirt, but he played against Texas. Now he has to play against Georgia. Just some very talented teams that he has to get it figured out against. He had about 144, I think, against Texas, which, I don't think he'll get much more than that against UGA, but it just seems like too low of a line not to take even against Georgia.
I was going to say 131 yards. Georgia's favored by 34. Yeah, listen, have you guys ever been to Mississippi State, the campus?
I have not.
Dude, Jay, I was listening because we both lived down here in Athens. I've listened, whatchamacallit, to like the talk radio when I first got down here, and they absolutely ripped Starkville. It was like the worst place ever. And any Mississippi State, the game's in Georgia. I don't know. It feels like a lot of points. All right, good. We'll go with that, Clayton. The quarterback on Mississippi State won't be terrible. Maybe Mississippi State hangs. All right, cool. Clayton, JMart, you have any more, or is that it?
Those were the 2 players, but again, really high on Ryan Williams this weekend. It just feels like a perfect matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if he pops for like 150 this weekend.
All right, let's go. We usually do SEC, and we'll get there, but the game of the week is going to be Oregon, Ohio State, although LSU Ole Miss plays at the same time. But let's do Oregon and Ohio State first. Jamar, give me an idea here of, kind of what to expect in this game. The total is a lot lower than I would have thought. It's only 54. Felt like both teams here could be in the 30s. You're not malfunctioning on me, are you?
I think my fire alarm is going off. Hold on. Let me step out for a sec, see what's going on.
Yeah, make sure you can come back. Jamer, so why is the number only that's okay, we'll just keep going. Why is the number only 54? Like both teams feels like it could be in the 30s. So we're gonna look at like a defensive game. Can you kind of break down both teams for us?
Well, I mean, you look at Oregon against Michigan State. I think they had 21. They just jumped on him with 21. And then they have a defensive head coach. Defensive head coach do tend to have the mindset of we're up by 3 possessions. We're just going to clamp him down on defense and run the clock out. And I do think that's a factor in this is that Oregon, should they take a lead, and really even if it's just a close game, they're going to try and be methodical. They're going to try and pound the run game. They're not going to try and take any extra risks against a really good.
Do they run a no huddle like they used to, or is it more?
Last time, I don't think so. I think they are more methodical because again, they haven't been scoring that well this year. It was a question mark early on, but again, then you look at Ohio State. It's a 2-back system. I think you are looking at a game that's so high profile that the 2 teams are going to be really methodical. It's going to be low-risk football. It might even be kind of boring at times.
Is there something to be said where both teams might not even show everything because they plan on playing later in the year, or am I overthinking it that way?
No, I think that's a fair statement. This isn't a must-win game for either team. Both teams can tank a loss right now. It's one of those games where one team might take the gamble of going out and opening the offense up, but I do expect both teams to play more methodical, much more. I'm not going to give anything away because they are, again, the favorites for the Big Ten Conference Championship.
Got it. Clayton, you're alive. Everybody's good?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there.
Oregon, Ohio State. Do you have a strong opinion on how this game's going to play out? I was talking with JMart how the number's not as high. He thinks it's going to be a grinded out game. Do you see it being a field goal game at the end, or do you think one team kind of pulls away?
Yeah, I could definitely see it being a more low-scoring game. Jack made a really good point right there of it not being a must-win game. With the new playoff format, these big regular season games, I guess, don't hold as much weight. Not that they're not still huge games, but yeah, I don't think it's a must-win thing, so I don't think they'll take any major risks. I'm very pleased with Oregon's offense from what I've seen. I think it took a couple weeks for them to truly get going, but after that Oregon State game, I think they convinced that they're a good team. And Ohio State's been really good on the defensive side. So I really can't – I wouldn't give any betting advice on this game, but I think Ohio State has the edge just because I think they have more overall talent, but I think it'll be a very close, low-scoring game.
What about LSU Ole Miss? Same thing, or do we see an edge there? Because both teams have one loss each, so the relevance in that game is way much higher than the Ohio State-Oregon game. Feels like the loser there almost has to win out. How do you see that playing out, Clayton?
Yeah, Ole Miss's loss was more of a slip-up, whereas LSU's, they just didn't seem like as good of a team. And LSU has struggled against, excuse me, a lot of other opponents. Kept it close with Nichols, South Carolina. Ole Miss has just looked better in the games that they've won. I think they've got a more versatile offense. And obviously LSU still has tons of holes on the defensive side of the ball. So even though they're at home, I think Ole Miss is the more talented, more proven team, and I think they'll win.
You see it the same way, JMart?
They said it exactly how I see it. Ole Miss had a slip up. LSU has just not looked good at times. And when it comes to big games, it's hard to believe in Brian Kelly to really be able to get it done. He tried to blow the South Carolina game. He probably deserved to lose that game. So if he has a hard time against South Carolina, I really have a hard time believing in him against such a good offensive mind, Lane Kiffin.
There's no way I'm betting on Brian Kelly ever again. I could not stand him. I was trying to look up his record in nighttime games. I wish I would have done that right beforehand. But I just assume they're going to lose. Like, I assume he's going to mess something up. Yeah, LSU at night at home is usually like, I mean, that's got to be the best environment in all of college football. Night game, LSU. But, yeah, it just feels like they have bad energy, bad karma with Brian Kelly. Just seems like a jackass of a guy. All right, so we got Ole Miss there. And let's move on. Let's go earlier in the day. So, well, this game usually is at noon, the Texas-Oklahoma game. I just looked. It's at 3:30. I thought that was good. That game's always at noon. I guess both teams are in the SEC television. So instead of the big noon game on Fox, we're going over to ABC. All right, Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma have a chance. I think I'll phrase it like this. Do they have a chance? Will this game be close in the fourth quarter? Clayton, why don't you go first?
I don't think so, just because they've had so many question marks on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think Jackson Arnold's starting. I think they'll be back with that freshman that they've been running. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but they've just been way too close with inferior opponents. They almost lost against Auburn. Plus, Texas has got Quinn Ewers coming back. So I think all the things kind of add up for Texas to be able to win pretty easily.
Jamar, I'm in the business of throwing things out with the rivalry. Just take the points. Can you make an argument that it's close with Oklahoma, or do you see it the same way?
I mean, the argument could be Quinn Ewers coming back. If the offense might run a little differently, and with a new quarterback, Oklahoma might be able to throw something different at Texas that they probably maybe haven't been planning for. But there's a talent discrepancy that's pretty large, and Texas has looked like a really well-oiled machine. I'm having a hard time justifying Oklahoma winning. They could cover just because, again, like, they're good enough to cover, but I really don't see it happening either.
So Florida, Tennessee, just going to keep rolling around here. Florida, Tennessee, I mean, we wrote off Florida, and then they've actually played pretty good over the past couple of weeks, albeit they haven't beat anybody, worth writing home about. Now they got to go to Tennessee. They get the unfortunate result of the game from last week because Tennessee loses to Arkansas. Conventional wisdom says Tennessee comes home and smashes Florida. They're given 14 points. Clayton, you're not. Is that how you see it playing out?
I do expect Tennessee to win this game, but historically, I think a good argument is just how good Florida's always been against Tennessee. It's always a close game. I think no matter the skill, I think Florida's won like 17 of the past 20, which obviously, isn't much of a factor when we're considering this year's rosters. But Florida's definitely better than I thought they were. I think they played solid against UCF. I think even in the loss against the Texas A&M team that's better than I thought they were at the beginning of the year, they look solid. So I don't think they're as bad as everyone's making them out to be, but going on the road against this year's Tennessee team, I don't think they'll pull it out.
You don't think they'll pull it out, but 14 points sounds like too many to you.
Yeah, I could definitely see them covering.
What do you think, JMart?
I think Tennessee can win this game by 20 plus. This is such a perfect bounce back spot for them. This is a big rivalry. It's an underrated one for sure. You're bringing them to Knoxville and you're telling them to try and keep it within 2 possessions against a team hungry for a win. That's a hard task against how fast Tennessee can be and how good the offense can run when it's running. It would take Florida kind of making Nico a little uncomfortable early in the game for this game to actually, I think, stay within 2 possessions.
So the square bet in me again says Missouri has to kill Massachusetts. What happened last week to Missouri? They lose to Texas A&M. I know people are yelling about excuse me. Jeez. I know people are yelling and screaming about the officials in that game. I saw some of it, but Missouri just got their ass handed to them. Now they go to Massachusetts. 27 points. Will Missouri try to score 70 here this week?
Yeah, I think they will, and UMass is the perfect team for it.
Right.
There aren't that many college football programs that have been as bad for as long as Massachusetts has been. I don't know how Massachusetts has scheduled so many SEC teams because they're coming to Georgia too, but it's a pretty. I think they're just. I think Missouri can cover that game by whatever the line is, pretty much.
The other game that jumped out at me, Clayton, that I didn't tell you guys ahead of time, but I'm just my value is I look at these games, I'm like, all right, something doesn't make sense. So am I missing something here? California loses to Miami in the worst loss. Well, not Colorado State. Who did Colorado be at the end? Baylor, that loss was terrible, but California's loss was absolutely awful. They're winning 38-18. They lose by a point. Just devastating how it all played out. Now they go all the way to Pittsburgh on a short week, and I don't know how good Pittsburgh is, but they're 5-0, 3.5-point spread. You guys have any insight on Pittsburgh here? Because that seems like a good bet.
I was actually looking at Pittsburgh earlier. Their quarterback seems like a freak dual threat that can really run the ball. Like, I was looking at the numbers on Pitt. He's been putting up some pretty sneaky good running performances, and he's a really good passer. It does feel a little Cam Ward-esque, he does. He's not Cam Ward, but sounds like a similar kind of gameplay style. It comes down to if Cal's going to be able to bounce back from such a deflating loss. It's either they're going to come back really hot and be ready to beat everyone, or they're just going to simmer out a little bit. You'll be able to tell in the first quarter kind of if the tenacity is still there for them.
And then the other game that jumped out, and then I'll ask you guys if there was any other games you want to talk about. Can I bet against Colorado? They're getting 3. Damn it, they're the underdogs. All right, why are they the underdogs? Kansas State's favored by 3.5 at Colorado. Kind of like I like when Colorado's the underdog. JMart, what do you think about that game?
I love Colorado. It's a home game for them. I don't know really. This feels like a game that probably should be even, like a -1, just because like Colorado's been really good this year. Like I know they lost the game to Nebraska, which really isn't that bad of a loss. But Colorado has looked incredible on offense. They are moving the ball well. Travis Hunter might win a Heisman. He's been that good. And while I love Avery Johnson, I do love Kansas State as an offense. He has been mistake prone. He has made mistakes. He has lost games, specifically kind of on the road. So it is a game that I think Colorado can win. And if they win, then there is an argument that do you rank Colorado after that?
No, I think they definitely get ranked after that. They'll be 5-1. They're probably close to being ranked right this second. Clayton, any thoughts on those games I just mentioned or anything else here in the last few minutes to help some people either stay away from games or something that you like in particular? Because that's kind of the way I look at it from gambling. It's like, all right, this might be a good game, but I don't have an opinion. That seemed to be your thoughts on the Ohio State, Oregon. But then Ole Miss, sounds like you like Ole Miss. I know you're not betting on the game, so you don't quite approach it the way JMart and I do. But help point some people in the right directions here. Is there any other games that jumped out at you?
I wouldn't say any other games, but on the topic of Colorado, Kansas State, I think it's a very good point that's just very even. That's one that I would probably stay away from just because both teams have they've made mistakes in games, but still pulled them out. I think Kansas State showed that they had a big bounce back after their first loss. So they showed that they can come back from adversity, but I'm just not convinced on either of those teams. They haven't been very consistent to me. So that's one I would definitely stay away from.
You had 3 prop bets, right?
Yeah.
3? But that's like the quarterback from Mississippi State that was more of a, we'll call that more of a lean, more of a but you had 2 that you felt good about. So we'll get those written up and out for everybody. JMart has his prop bets, and then you'll have your final picks out here when you finish looking up at anything, JMart. But was there anything else that jumped out at you? Penn State's going to USC, or floor's just open. Was there any other games that you were like, something to look at?
Penn State USC is a game that USC has had good showings. They also have had really bad ones, like losing to Minnesota. But I think Penn State has looked pretty dominant. I don't know why they're ranked above Georgia as of this moment. I kind of don't get that based off how they've played, but that could be a fun game. That could be one that's pretty at least entertaining to watch. And then, as always, Ashton Janti, Boise State's playing Hawaii. It is at 10, but he's must watch football. That line I think is like 22.5. I do kind of like Boise State to cover that one.
What position does he play? Is he the quarterback?
He's the freak running back. He's got He's 1,004.
Yeah, he's over 1,000 yards already. He's
in 4 games. What did they play? 5 games. Damn.
Yeah, and he's played I think 4 games of total football because they pulled him at the half twice.
1,031 yards and 16 touchdowns.
He's a freak.
Yeah, that's my Heisman right now.
Yeah, he probably is the Heisman.
Why did he's from Jacksonville, Florida? How did he end up at Boise State?
Wasn't he at Florida and then he transferred?
Is that what it was?
I don't know. I didn't hear about him till this year. He just kind of came onto the scene out of nowhere.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think you're right, JMart. That's where. Oh, hey, that NIL money. Boise State had a couple extra dollars. He wanted to play on the blue field. Okay, now I got something to do later. All right, I appreciate you guys. We shall see y'all next week. Good luck. Get all the bets out and everything written up so you guys can take a look at it. And I'll be here in the morning. All right, see you guys.
All right, see you.
See you guys.